Hello, hi, and welcome back. I wasn't expecting to see you so soon, but I literally have just read the last book in less than 24 hours, which is always a good sign, I believe. You know, the quicker you read, the more you want to read it, the quicker you get it finished, it's got to be good. So this video is continuing on my journey with the Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction Longlist, and this is the third book that I've read from the longlist, and that book is Clear by Carys Davies. So, what did I think about this? So in my head, I've been trying to juggle with whether I want to give this 4 stars or 5 stars. I will reiterate what I did last year is purely on personal taste and personal experience with the book. I'm very simple. I like a story, you know, I'm not overly literary. So yeah, I love a good story. I was feeling before I read this was going to be quite literary. It's not quite literary. It's on the verge. You know, it's got some really nice language in there, but there is still a nice story. But for me, I just wanted a bit more at the end. I just wanted to know what happened next. But that being said, I can't ignore the beautiful language and the poignant, touching story between the two main characters. So I have verged on giving it the 5 stars because it is short but sweet. What I like is the chapters are really short and punchy. You know, some of the chapters are literally a page long, but it doesn't impact on the story in a negative way. Some books you read and you think, oh, that was a bit short, I need a bit more. Others, the chapters are just too long and you're just like, oh, get on with it. But with this, it actually worked. It kept the pace really nice. It was quick, yeah, the pace was quick, but it suited what was going on. So Clear is about the relationship between two men that I've never met before. So we have Ivar, who is living on a remote Scottish island. Having read the book, the back of the book, it's not a real island. It's one that the author has imagined halfway between Scotland and Norway. So he's lived on this island all his life, but for the past 2 decades, he's lived alone since his mother and I believe sister-in-law left and his brothers died. So he's just on the land. The land's owned by, is it the church that owns it? And they're tenants on this land basically. And, you know, it's set in 1843. So these people would work the land, they'd pay rent for the land. But the person who now owns the land is realising that it's not really profitable. What they want to do is get rid of the people and just stock it full of livestock, sheep, and then that way they can just send people over to the island 3 times a year to, you know, make sure they're all right, to take the wool off them and then to take the lambs away as well so they can sell them, be a bit more profitable. So that's where we come to John. John Ferguson is part of the new Scottish movement in the church, Presbyterian, and he finds himself in a bit of a lull with money. So his wife writes to his brother-in-law and says, you know, is there anything you can do? Brother-in-law offered a loan, but they didn't want to take a loan. So he's put him in touch with the owner of this land and he says, well, hang on, I've got this job. If you go to this island and tell this guy he needs to leave, then I'll pay you really well. And because they were so in desperate need of money, he was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. Anyway, so long story short, he goes to the land. The day he gets there, he doesn't meet Ivar then. He goes to this little house, which is for the people, or is meant to be where the people who own the land stay when they visit, although they haven't visited for a long time. And then shortly after he gets there, he has an accident and he falls down some steep rocks and he's unconscious. And then Ivar, shortly after, finds his bag that he was carrying with all his personal possessions, but didn't find him. So Ivar doesn't know whether, you know, this guy, these belongings belong to someone who is on the island, who's maybe shipwrecked near the island. So he takes them home, he takes them out, he drives them off. And then later on, he finds John, who's still unconscious. He takes him back to his house. And the story just follows the relationship from when John wakes up. Now, Ivar doesn't speak English. He has his own variation of a dialect, close to maybe Scots and Norse in between there. John has come, on the way he stopped at Kirkwell in the Orkney Islands and met this guy at the university or college or whatever. to try and get some translations. So he wrote down some bits to try and help him give the message that he needs to leave. But what we see is this kind of friendship blossoming from two people who don't understand each other initially, who build up that relationship. Because John's meant to be there for a month before he's then getting picked up again. And it's really touching. It's quite sweet. For me, there's a few things that are implied that happen that we're not necessarily told for definite it happened. And for me, that's just part of the storytelling. I just want a bit more. Just tell me, did it happen? And especially at the end, like, you're implying something, but just let me know. But yeah, then we see John's wife, who's worried. She finds out that the guy who owns the land sent John because he was worried about Ivar being there and how he might react and could he be violent. So that worries her. So then she makes her own way to the island, and that's the end of the story. We see how that materializes. But overall, it's a lovely, short, punchy, thoughtful story of these two guys who are isolated in different ways. So Ivar, who's been on his own for 20 years, is now having to come to grips with having someone with him constantly, and we see how that affects him. And it's kind of almost like, you know, he did have family with him before, and this is making him realise that actually he does like that presence around him, and how he becomes so attached to John being there. And then we have John, who has never been used to being this isolated before, and we see him question what's happened to him in the past and how he's led his life to that point. You know, he got involved in the church, he's very staunchly religious, and he's starting to question that in the setting, and we see how that moves their story forward. And yeah, it's, as I said, story-wise, I just wanted a little bit more, and that was why I was tinkering on the 4-star. But with the beautiful writing, it's poignant, it's punchy, it's thoughtful, and actually I did quite enjoy the story. I just wanted a little bit more. But I had to give it 5 stars. I can't just knock a star off because I just wanted to find out what happened at the end. That wouldn't be fair. So that's my thoughts on Clear. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet, but yeah, highly recommend. It took me less than 24 hours to read. It's, as I said, it's got, 146 pages, and you've got 42 chapters. So that just shows how short the chapters are, but it really does work here. It keeps the story moving along nicely between what's going on between the two men, what's going on back home with John's wife, but also a bit of their backstories, what happened to them before leading to this point. So that's my thoughts on Clear. What am I going to do next? I haven't actually decided what I'm going to do next, because I've just finished this and I wanted to get my thoughts out, because I haven't written any script this time, because sometimes I write notes, but I thought you just get it out of my head and it just sounds a bit more natural, I think, hopefully. So I'm looking up, I've got a few from the long list, and so I'm off work at the moment for 5 days on annual leave. So I might tackle one which looks the biggest. So yeah, let's go for this one. David Peace, Munich's. It's a bit thicker than the rest. Pages don't look too bad, to be fair, but it's 450 pages long, so I might as well get that stuck into that while I've got a bit of time off work. So yeah, I'll try that one next, see how that goes. If you read Clear, let me know what you think. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.